Welcome to another episode of the South Star Classroom. We gonna talk about not about to about. We gonna talk about the thing that the whole world is talking about right now, Ja Morant. But I think we got a different angle on the other side.
Audio Jungle.
Welcome back to another episode of the South Star Classroom. That's Omar. That's David. I'm Charles. Jubilee is out today, but she will be back with us next week. And we got some good topics today. But before we go into our lead topic of Ja Morant, and there's some other things happening in school districts that we've been following, gentlemen, how are you doing? Now, I want to go to Omar first, David, because I have learned something today about Omar, David, is that he is worse than Jubilee with the damn dog. So it is Jubilee and Omar against me. No, he has. So Omar, how are you and your dog doing today, brother?
Well, man, I was doing good until you had to start, talking all this smack about the dog.
I said nothing bad about the dog.
This dog's just trying to live. He's a good boy. He's right here. He's not making any noises. He's a happy guy. He teaches you about patience and love and understanding. Look, if people don't have dogs and they have the opportunity to get a dog, they are one of the world's greatest teachers, teaching you about love, empathy, patience, kindness, especially if you take the time to train them well. Because, ain't no such thing as a bad dog, totally such a thing as a bad owner. So that's good. Other than that, man, we're wrapping up the school year. We're growing a grade level next year. People are trying to convince us to do a 12th grade next year instead of 6th to 11th. They want to expand all the way through 12th. It's a lot. So we're grappling with a number of issues, but all really wonderful things, man. So it's also hot as hell already in El Paso. David's going to come at us and be like, oh my God, it's 76 degrees here in San Diego. It's so hot right now. What's up with you, David?
Yeah, it is warm here. I think we hit 80 degrees today. So finally feeling some of that good summer weather. I look forward to visiting. I look forward to visiting El Paso in a couple of weeks. Definitely. I'm going to be in Oakland later this week with another client that I'm working with. And other than that, things are good. I'm excited about today's topic, kind of a different angle, different take. So yeah, Dr. Cole.
Man, I'm good, man. The new merch has come in. I'm very happy and proud of it. Designed the Agentic series. I'm good, man. Just been busy, man. I feel like I've been on a hamster wheel a little bit, but really excited about today's show. Really interested in talking about the topic. Happy to be here with you all. I'm definitely gonna miss Jubilee this week because I think especially with this topic, having a ladies thought process into the chat is kind of important. But I do think that like I said, I'm happy to be here, man. I'm tired. I look tired. You ain't got to tell me. I'll get messages sometimes when people don't want to embarrass me, like, you look tired. Are you sleeping? And on those days, I don't even be tired. So I know when I'm actually tired, it's even worse. But nah, man. But I'm happy to be here, and I appreciate that. So, listen, fellas, we got a big show today, but there's been a developing story that we've been following. We have a resident legend here that talks about this stuff, that knows about this stuff firsthand, that's been in the thick of it, especially in the place where we're going. David, can you give us an update on the happenings in Oakland right now?
Yeah, so this would be, I believe, the third update. We've talked about it every week while it was happening, and maybe once before. But the update is that the Oakland Unified School District is once again reopened. The strike is over. The Oakland Education Association, they led, I think it was a 7 or an 8 day strike. Students are back in school, and I think they've got 9 days of school left, or 8, something like that. So it's going to wrap up pretty quickly. The strike was essentially around some of the things that we talk about, tied to teacher contracts, like pay. So there was definitely a pay raise that came out of it. Let's see what else came out of it. Some agreements around keeping class sizes, at a certain level. Don't have the fine print. Prep time was included, and I think that those were and also school closures. Something about maybe a commitment to not close any more schools. I believe there were some other pieces that were in the conversation. We called those things the common good list, and some of those. They're not technically part of a teacher contract, but they were. They came to some agreements on. Let's see, what were the areas? Black community schools, shared governance of community schools, school closures, and then student housing and transportation. Those are the four areas out of that long list that we looked at last week that they came to some agreements on. So this thing has to go to the county, and then the board has to approve it, and there's a whole formal process. So the contract is not formally approved yet, but it looks like it's heading there. And so I'm just glad kids are back in school. That was the big thing for me, and I know for a lot of people.
That's what's up, man. Yeah, thank you for that, man. Let's just do one quick round on that. Any reactions? Omar, I'll start on this one since I got ties to Oakland, and you can wrap us up. Well, you can go, and then David, you can wrap anything up around this.
Okay.
Here's what I think, man. Oakland is very near and dear to my heart. I love Oakland. I've worked in Oakland. I went to school in Oakland schools. I think that we'll be right back here in less than 2 years. I think that there was a lot of promises made. I think this is the epitome of unfunded mandates. You have to pay for these things. We have a structural deficit that is not only is it not being addressed, fellas, is having a deeper hole dug in it. And at some point, math is going to math. And so, I want the things that they asked for in the common good. I would love to see those things happen. I don't think it's right to always hold the district hostage per se, because it's giving people false hope. There need to be other entities involved to actually solve and eradicate the issues that's going on in Oakland socially. But I'm glad kids get to finish out their school year, because seniors were being threatened to not be able to, have a proper graduation or whatnot during the strike. So those are my thoughts. I'll throw it to you, Omar, before David closes this topic for us.
Quick question: was teacher pay part of this?
Yep.
It's the main thing. Look, it's always the main thing, brother.
Right. Which is what I thought. So I think my quick hot take is there was this really good report that Harvard put out, and it was funny because I feel like the El Paso Leadership Academy, our schools here in El Paso, has like a weird crystal ball where we can see into the future. And the article was really about principals learning the mechanics of budgeting, because you should have a principal that essentially is in charge of budgeting and has someone to help them out with budgeting at the campus level, because the complexities of the budget are important. And it's funny because I had suggested that exact same framework 5 years before, and then when now Dr. Benitez was raising his hand in class, they were like, this is a brand new article. He's like, yeah, dude, we've been doing that for years. The moral of the story is that I don't think teachers and principals have a discernible clue about how budgets work. And that's slightly frustrating, because I think if they did, they could be more informed and make more informed decisions about what they're doing with the union. Where I'm coming with that is that school closures, as extremely unfortunate as they are oftentimes the mechanics of economics. Charles talked about it a bazillion times. How are you going to have a school that's meant for 1,500 kids and you got 300 kids in there? You're paying for the building, you're paying for facilities, you're paying for electricity, you're paying for repair on a place that ultimately isn't going to bring in the revenue in order to ensure that, you're able to upkeep that school. So it's very odd to me that teachers who are demanding greater pay are also eliminating the potential for the district to save money economically to pay them by allowing for school closures, which really brings up the question of like, who are these people and do they have the expertise to actually be negotiating what they should be negotiating? Because that issue alone strikes an inordinate amount of incompetency to me. And that lack of understanding, that lack of competency, it's like, why are you at the table discussing this when the adults need to discuss this? And clearly you're not the educated adult in the room, which by the way, I feel about unions in general for the teacher side, not our not our regular unions. I believe in labor unions. Just think the teacher unions, man. I'm like, yeah, man, another mark of like, you guys just not doing your job right. So that's my hot take on it. Charles?
Oh, it's all David. David's closing us out on it.
Yeah, I think what Charles said earlier, like we're going to be back here in a couple of years, if not sooner, is true because they actually haven't addressed, and this is getting to Omar's point too. I mean, this all boils down to budgeting and finance, and then like resources. And you know, you can't want more than you have, but they're doing that right now. And it's coming at a time when, so this is going to cost a lot of money, right? A major like shift and modification to next year's school budget. School budgets are driven by attendance revenue, and the district is declining in enrollment. So you have a revenue decline, and then also I don't know if anybody's tracking the state budget. California's over the next couple of years, not the record funding for education, but education funding is going to actually start to roll back a little bit. So fewer dollars in, fewer students, yet they're spending more. So I think the structural stuff has not gotten fixed. They need to close schools. And I think that's the reality. So essentially kicking the can down the road.
Yeah, man. I mean, well, that's Oakland. That's Oakland in a nutshell. Mm-hmm. And it leads us to, our best wishes go out to everybody there, to the people there, to the people that work there. And appreciate that. Well, this next topic is kind of near and dear to my heart. Somebody who loves basketball. Sadly, a new video is surfaced on May 13th. Ja Morant once again in a car, brandishing a weapon with his friends on IG Live. It was not his IG Live. It was his friend's IG Live. This is the second time in 2 months that Morant has been involved in an incident involving a gun. In March, Morant was suspended for 8 games after he was filmed flashing a gun in a Colorado strip club. The Grizzlies have since suspended Morant from all team activities pending league review. And the NBA has not yet announced a punishment for Ja, but insiders are saying it is going to be much more stern. You can expect around maybe a half a year suspension. And I just, so there's a lot of takes that's on the internet right now. A lot of people are talking about this from the sports world to not in the sports world. I think in us doing this show about education and educators that work in urban areas, I know this is going to be a hot topic across the country. And my question is, how should educators or mentors discuss the Ja Morant situation with their students? Like, how should we be engaging? And I got a lot of interesting thoughts, but I'll let you fellas kick us off there. Go ahead, David. You can start.
I guess a couple of, so when you brought this topic forward, my initial thinking was like, this happened a while ago. Why is Charles bringing it forward again? Because apparently there was a second video, which is crazy. And then, I think the one question I had, the thing that I think about is
ask any questions too, man, because I've been kind of in it. So
like, did he break any actual laws?
So it's not that he broke laws. So I'm glad you asked that question. What happened was he went through this, and then there was a rehabilitation, like there was a counseling thing he was supposed to go to, and he did this big national interview with Jalen Rose, who I've actually interviewed before. We interviewed him on the A Black Hands a long time ago. And Jalen had, his own issues when he was younger, but it was a lot of people giving him cover. And in that, Ja Morant was very remorseful. He talked about finding new ways to deal with stress and things like that, and how he was getting help and he was going to be better. And here's some other facts, because again, this isn't a sports podcast, and I live by this stuff. I love it. Ja Morant is he just lost out on $40 million because he didn't make NBA first or second. He didn't make an all NBA team. What happens is there's this thing called a super max contract that allows for small markets to retain their good players. So if you have an all NBA player and they're at the end of their contract, you can offer them more money than anybody in the NBA. Ja Morant didn't make that team because of the trouble he got into, which cost him $40 million. The other thing is Ja Morant has also signed 2 huge deals with Nike and with Powerade. This is the first time Powerade is reintroducing a sponsor like Gatorade. They went away for a while. You haven't seen Powerade commercials. So he was leading that. We don't know what's going to happen with there, but that has since been that campaign has been halted. We don't know if it's canceled or not. The other thing is that Ja Morant is a generational talent. We're not talking about him just losing $40 million or whatever the case is. He is one of the faces of the NBA and of the Memphis Grizzlies, and he brings revenue into that city. Ja Morant has a potential to be a billion-dollar athlete. Like with where the economy is going, like there was Jordan, there's LeBron, and Ja Morant is on the list of people that the NBA is propping up. So he is in a different type of partnership than just a regular player in the NBA. Like he is the type of person that is getting a call from Adam Silver directly. Like, hey man, this is gonna, you know what I'm saying? Like there's a different conversation. So he did not break any laws. Tennessee is an open carry. You don't need a permit state. But okay. He is a spokesman. He is a pitchman for a private company that is worth billions of dollars. So yeah, hopefully that context added a little bit. If I didn't answer anything, you folks ask again, you know.
Yeah, no, I'm good. Omar, you want to take a shot at the question?
Yeah, before I take a shot, I got to ask just a few things and then make a statement of clarification. Okay. So just for all of us here, Texas is the wild, wild west, y'all. Open carry state. Now I got my concealed carry license. I am a Texan in that respect. The thing is that concealed carry license, for what it's worth now, very little, because now Texas is now opened up open carry across the state. What I did learn by having a concealed carry license is what is legal and what is not. You may carry a gun in public. If it is a concealed license, like I have, it must be concealed at all times. If it is an open carry, like that is passed in Texas, you may carry that weapon. However, it must be in holster the entirety of the time. If there is ever a moment when you even like Ice Cube, Boys in the Hood, yo, we got a problem here. We got a problem where you lift up the shirt to expose the gun in a threatening manner, felony. That is against the law. If you take your gun out of the holster in a menacing fashion, unless you are in ludicrous self-defense, and I mean ludicrous, like someone is charging at you with a knife or a gun, you are in imminent danger, there are witnesses, and that can be demonstrated in a court of law. You just whip out your gun, illegal. So just a point of clarification, this gentleman whipping out his gun and showing it on a video, illegal. Not okay. Now, what happens in these music videos that you see where people are like brandishing these weapons and so forth, they're getting away with it because ultimately these aren't real weapons. They had gone through extreme legal scenarios in order to show those things on those videos and certify that they were not real weapons, that they were not loaded, that no one was in imminent danger. By demonstrating and brandishing your weapon, even in an open carry state, whether it's on video or not, is illegal. So I just want to make sure that's out there to begin with. I think my main question is, okay, so let's forget the legality for a moment. Let's think about the fact that this guy is doing this on purpose in order to both brandish an image for himself. And also, like, hey, we have a whole show dedicated to him because he's doing these things. So I guess my main question is he doing himself more harm or more good by showing this weapon around and getting this kind of heat? Heat is a fun term for the professional wrestling industry. Is he brandishing heat on purpose in order to get more eyeballs, more contracts, more money? And thus the whole reason that this cat is doing this, because hey man, Powerade's like, this guy's got like 1 million+ followers because he's doing things like this. So I want to just ask you all your take.
Yeah. He had a lot more followers than 1 million. So he is one of the faces of the NBA. Like, it's not and the reason why I made this one of the topics in the show is because this guy is more influential than all of us combined could probably even think of. Like, young kids are watching him. This will be the topic, and I'm watching the defenses online. And so what I would just say is, for me, the conversation is less. It's not about the gun. Like, I think the gun. I think people that are talking about it from the perspective of the gun are missing that this is an employee of a multi-billion, multinational corporation who has got a lot. He has hundreds of millions of dollars just that he gets off a check. And this, we're not even talking about endorsements. Again, he has the earning potential of $1 billion. And there was a contract that he went into with the league. He gave them his word, and less than 2 months later, you have allowed yourself to be back in it. Not even a different situation, but the same type of situation of you brandishing a gun in the car. Now, let me just say, like you said, like you talked about, I am a gun owner. I am licensed. I am a concealed carrier, and there are things that you learn. Like, I don't enjoy carrying a gun. I just know where I am, and it's for safety. But even when you're taught that you don't even show that thing unless you're about to have to use it, right? It's not a toy. It's not a thing that you play with. But the reason why I want to have this discussion is because this is going to be a conversation that young people are going to have in the presence of adults in schools. And somebody like me who has made his own mistakes, who still makes mistakes. Like, I want to see people like Ja Morant. I love Ja Morant. I'm not throwing Ja Morant away. Like, I think that Ja Morant is an exceptional talent. I don't know how big NBA guys you are. Take whatever sport that you like the most, and then take the most electrifying person in that sport, and they're only 23 years old, right? Like, they're 23 years old, meaning that they're only going to get better. Like, LeBron James is about to leave. Steph Curry is about to leave. Ja Morant is the guy. Like, he is about to be the guy. And it's like, I want to have this conversation with young people, but I don't want to feel hypocritical, right? I don't want to feel like young people make mistakes and he's a young guy. But you have so much potential, and you are throwing away potential, opportunity. You are hurting jobs for your fellow teammates. You are hurting things for your city. Like the GDP of Memphis is more.
Wait,
because
so I got you. Yeah. But I want to throw a quick wrench into this, and then I can kind of give hot takes and stuff, because I want to separate two things for myself and maybe even for the audience, but really, like, just to clarify myself, we got two different debates here. One, you've got this gentleman and his actions and what that means for him, the NBA, and endorsements. And, like, look no further, in my opinion, than Kanye West. So look at Kanye losing like $1 bazillion in endorsements, but then homeboy makes, a half-assed apology and does whatever, and like Adidas is back on board, and you got $200 million. I want to make a statement later about celebrity and the rich and the rules they play by, because I think it's really important in terms of the dichotomy for our kids. So you got that angle, but then you've got the angle of what this means for our kids. So which path are we going down here? Are we going down the Kanye West endorsement route, or are we going down what this means for our kids route?
I think that we should be asking the question around how should mentors discuss Ja, but these are my considerations that I'm thinking about as I discuss these things about Ja. So I can talk about it from those perspectives. I actually think that I think there are some similarities, but I do think they're different because Kanye West is a corporation. He is an entity who was in partnership, and Adidas is saying Adidas lost a third of their profit when whatever happened, right? So they're in a bind. I think that's an independent thing. If Adam Silver says you're done here, you're done here. Like it's a wrap, right? But but this is about talking about young people because
I'm sorry, brother. Who is
watching.
Adam Silver?
Adam Silver is the commissioner of the NBA.
Of NBA. Okay.
Yeah. He is the big boss. He is the big boss, and Joe Dumars is like his number two. He's a Hall of Fame player from Detroit, right? And he's not really he's kind of a no nonsense dude. He was a player himself. I guess what I'm saying is I'm somebody I want to have this conversation with young people, but I don't want to seem preachy. I want them to, and I don't want them to do what we just did, right? Well, it's legal here or it's not legal here or whatever the case is. I don't think that that's wise to tell young people because I don't even think it's not even about the legality of it. It is about, I need to have a deeper conversation with you because if your need to brandish a gun or be accepted by your friends or be accepted by rappers or be accepted by TikTok, if you are willing to lose hundreds of millions of dollars and I am a mentor of yours, I have to like say something to you. Like I have to be there for you. I have to help you be able to think through this and be able to see the forest, you know what I'm saying, to not lose the forest for the trees. And I guess what I was saying was, I'm like, well, damn, how do I have this conversation without wanting to feel like a hypocrite? Because I've done stupid stuff. I still get in trouble. Like there are things where sometimes my emotions get the best of me and I've cost other people things or whatever. So what I'm trying to turn this into to have it be a different conversation than what everybody else in the nation is talking about is how does one with their own past, like, you know, how do you engage people that you care about that are impressionable on these conversations in a way that might help them? Because I'm telling you, these young people love Ja Morant. He is the Allen Iverson of this generation. Allen Iverson is probably one of the most influential athletes of all time. And we watched him grow up in front of us and we watched him be ridiculed in different ways. And what we're seeing is a young man who is throwing it all away and could potentially really, really, really get himself hurt. Memphis is not a place you want to play around. It is not a place that you want to act like a gangster or pretend to be one. And in fact, I'll try to find, there was a Crip that sent him a message because he throws
I just saw that, man. The guy from LA, right? One of the
and the guy said, listen, man, you're stupid.
Yeah.
The guy said, this is my lifestyle. And if I could do what you're doing, I wouldn't be doing that. But if you want to play around, come on down here. And if you want to see what that lifestyle is about. So I guess what I'm saying is, you know, we are all in positions that young people look up to us. How would you talk to young people about this, Omar? That's the question.
So I think let me
go ahead, David. Go ahead, David.
Yeah, I got some quick thoughts on this. So in thinking about talking with young people about this, you know, I think you let them look at it, right? Let them kind of dissect it, because I've just dissected it over the last couple of hours, and I have interesting thoughts on it. You know, you let young people kind of try to understand what's happening beneath the surface. So there's the gun thing. I think the legality or the illegality of it, we can put that aside. But you know, try and put yourself into his head. Like, what is his motivation for doing this? I think there's the gun piece. But I'm also like seeing that he has he likes throwing up Crip signs, you know, on the court.
Man. It's a lot of
I'm
stuff
like,
that's
man,
happened, man.
I'm like, so it's not just a mistake. It's like he's clearly trying to present himself as something that, you know, he may not be, right? I don't think he's a real Crip. I don't think he grew up in, you know, those kinds of neighborhoods based on what I've read. And so, you know, if you're talking with young people about it, there's the whole angle of having them understand, you know, that this person is a celebrity. He has a contract. You could read the contract. It probably says a whole lot about how you conduct yourself, right? And the imagery and
behavior
all the stuff.
Detrimental to the league.
I mean, the NBA owns him. The league owns him, right? And there's a contract, and it says what you can do and what you cannot do. So I think there's that piece of it. And then the other piece just around, you know, trying to figure out, like, if you actually are not, you know, from that kind of a, you know, neighborhood, or if you didn't grow up in and around, you know, Crips and Bloods, like, you have, you know, you're a millionaire and like why I don't understand it. It's like this thing of trying to portray yourself as something that you're not. And obviously, I see one of the earlier comments. It's the harm that he's done outside of the harm to his career. I think what I would say is being a young African American athlete celebrity, or you could be a young Latino athlete or celebrity,
right?
Portraying yourself in a way where kids are going to follow you. You're influential, you're an influencer, and if you portray yourself like that, young people that look up to him will mimic and try and like imitate that, in some way, shape, or form in their lives. It'll be in their head, like, this is my idol, this is what he does. And then young people start taking up, that kind of, those kinds of activities. Again, I think there's a separation between people that actually grew up in the hood. I grew up in a neighborhood where I grew up in a Crip neighborhood. And so I was in and around Crips for a lot of my youth. But I don't throw gang signs anymore,
Yeah.
And so I think that element of like he's presenting himself as something that he's really not, and I think that's really interesting. There's like some kind of psychology that you could like look into there.
Yeah, and here, I'll give you even more context. Vita asked a great question, so I want to answer it. I pulled him up in July 2022. Morant was accused of punching a teenager during a basketball game on his property. It had got chippy. He went inside, got a gun, showed it in the waist. And the young man said that he eventually punched him in the face. In September 2022, Morant was involved in a confrontation at a Houston high school volleyball game. Ja's sister was playing in the game, and there was an altercation between her and another teenager. Morant got a call. And his family showed up at the gym and confronted them. No charges were filed. In December of 2022, Morant was fined $50,000 for making a profane gesture during the game. He got ejected from that game. Also during that season, he got into it with some cats from the Indiana Pacers, to which the Pacers reported seeing a red dot pointed at their bus from their friends. The league investigated it, and they could not find if it was him, if it was a gun scope or just a red beam. So that happened. So, and then there was the strip club incident, and then there's this. So again, Ja Morant, and I love Ja Morant. He is super talented, and I think that he represents and holds the hopes and dreams of like a lot of people. And I think in that, so if I'm talking to young people about it, right, there's this rebel aspect. There's this like respect aspect around who Ja Morant is. There's this keeping a real piece or whatever the case is. And I guess this is how I would talk to young people about it. As somebody who's not perfect, as somebody who makes a lot of mistakes, as somebody who is in the last year has lost his temper and could have potentially caused people that I care about opportunities, right? I would say, look, there are going to be moments where you are not going to be perfect and things are going to happen. But when you are put in positions of power like that, when you have like, this isn't just about a gun, this isn't about legality. Like you said, David, you are part of a larger entity and you have a contract. And in that contract, there's a thing called behaviors detrimental to the like they protect that shield, man, whether it's the MLB, NFL, NBA, or whatever the case is. And you are about to blow generational wealth. Because you want to fit in. Now we got to have a different conversation about why you need to feel the need to fit in with these people, or why you hang with people you feel like you need to fit in with like this, to the point where you would throw your life away. Not to even mention, Memphis is not the place where you want people to test your gangster. It's just not the place for it. And so that was kind of my thing. Like, I'm not going to pile on the young man. I think that there's a lot of stuff is going to come down. I think a lot of people are calling him a lot of names. I think that I don't know if he actually wants to hurt anybody. I don't think that he is going out there consciously being like, I'm gonna blow $100 million today. But there's some type of arrested development that is happening right here. And if you have a mentor like a David or an Omar, what is David or Omar putting their arm around they knucklehead young person that they love and saying to them? Like, David, what are you saying to, you're leading the school right now. You got the top baseball player that's about to go, man. He's about to go. He got a signing bonus, and you just know he's doing some dumb stuff that's not going to help him. And you've probably been there before. Like you said, you've done some dumb stuff yourself as a kid. How are you talking to this person?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's so there's a contract, right? The basketball players have a contract. You work at a school, you have a contract, you have a job, you have some kind of a contract, right? So I think that's the starting point for me. Like, you have this thing, you have this opportunity, whether it's being a teacher or, you know, working at a grocery store or playing in the NBA. You have an opportunity. Understand what is written into your contract, because that's a legally binding document. You could essentially get yourself fired. In his case, he's going to lose millions of dollars in endorsements, right, and partnerships. So I think there's that angle. And then this whole thing has me thinking of the sad saga of Aaron Hernandez too. And how somebody kind of went astray. That there might have been some CTE issues with him. I'm not really sure, but obviously, he did what he did, and he kind of took a similar path, right? He was like hanging around, people that were involved in gangs. He was getting involved in gangs all the while playing for the NFL, right? I'm like, what are you doing? So, I think for something that I would share with young people, be they Black or brown, or just young men in general, is when we grow up and we have to get through school, we have to we all have careers, we move through them, and we know what it's like being a person of color, being a man of color, right? You have to do certain things. You have to learn how to code switch. You have to because people are always looking for any one thing to write you off. Oh, there goes Charles, it's because he's African American, or there goes Omar flying off the handle, or there goes Castillo doing what he's going to do. There's this thing about you have a gift, you're getting an education, you're an athlete, whatever it is, and telling young people that there's a cost when you violate particular codes of conduct, and we might not like it, right? There's probably a whole lot of things that are wrapped up in that are uncomfortable for people, but it's true, right? And I think it's sad to see him I don't think he's throwing his career away. It's still early to see, right. But just to make some of those choices, again, there's the money part of it. The other thing that we didn't talk about is he's putting his own personal safety at risk now, right? I'm like, you do this thing, and now the Crips are going to come looking for you, right? Or somebody else, and I'm like, why would you do that to yourself? Why would you put yourself in that position? So it's really about decision making, who's around you, who's giving you advice, or who's not giving you advice. And I think with a lot of these young athletes or young celebrities or actors and actresses, they need mentors too, right? Yeah. Not just financial advisors, but they need ancestors and uncles and fathers and people to be helping to guide them. And I feel like when that doesn't happen, they end up in situations like this.
Yeah, I hadn't been taught to really deal with those things. This is how I want to set it up for Omar. So Omar, here's a scenario. You're at your school and you like the cool leader, you know what I'm saying? The kids rock with you. They want you to be part of their conversations, Omar, right? So you see a group of 5 young Black and brown men, right? Let's just say you got some 17-year-olds and they're talking about the Ja situation. And what you hear them saying is, nah, man, Ja a real one, man. Ja he not conforming to this system, man. That's what we own. You know what I'm saying? I keep the stick on me, and this is what I'm gonna do, whether I'm making $5 or $500 million. What are you saying as the leader in that moment, Omar, with these young people that respect you? Maybe how's that scenario? I'm curious.
No, yeah. So I have a whole programmatic response to this. And again, I want to shout out South Star Classroom. Remember, ladies and gentlemen, we are not just a show. We are a consultancy because we know how to handle these things. And I kind of want to give you a little bit of a taste, a little, just to wet the beak to see what it is that we're talking about here. I think that most people would probably, sit down and talk either to or at the kids. And what I'm thinking about is not just a programmatic solution for, say, 5 kids. I'm thinking about a programmatic solution that I could do in every single classroom across the entirety of our schools all at the same time. And it's not a complex endeavor, it's just a matter of structure and system. So if anyone on our show is familiar with restorative justice, this is where it comes from. But if you're not, restorative justice is just like a group of practices that essentially build relationships with teachers and students, really building relationships with one another, deep, meaningful relationships. See, when you get to know each other very well and you can empathize with another student in terms of, oh, well, they too, like, weren't born in the United States, or they also don't have a dad, or they also live with their grandparents, and they begin to build these meaningful connections with one another. It's ultimately what, like, absolves the overwhelming majority of bullying, fighting, violence. And schools that practice these kinds of things have a dramatic reduction in their suspensions and detentions and everything else, because you're teaching kids how to handle emotions, how to speak with one another, how to communicate with one another. And I think that there's a bit of a question here about, should schools teach morality? And I've got a bit of a response, but how I would handle this is that I would get those kids together and just talk at them. I'd get them together, I'd sit them in a circle, and I'd simply start asking a number of questions. And be like, I'd start out with, hey, this whole Ja Morant thing, what do you think about this? And you're going to start having 5 different answers coming around the circle, 10 different answers, 15 different answers, depending if it's a class. Like, hell, if you got a class of kids at our school, that's 25 answers. And what's cool about having 25 different answers is that it's one thing for the adult to talk to the kid, and then the kids can easily be like, yeah, you don't get it, you're not a kid these days, you're an adult, you're old, you grew up in a different generation. It's very powerful and dramatic to hear your peers that understand you very well and are your age basically saying, yeah, this dude's kind of wilding out, this dude's worth millions of dollars and this is how he's handling it. This guy's got a meal ticket for the rest of his life, and we don't have that meal ticket, but this is how he's handling that meal ticket. Those kinds of conversations have a dramatic impact because they'll listen to their peers a whole lot. And then you've got all these varied perspectives. And then ultimately you keep asking questions and interject things. So it's not just about, hey, how do you feel about this? You can honestly ask the question like, how does this make you feel? Like, do you feel like you can walk around and do this as well? And the kids are more likely to be like, hell yeah, if he can do it, like I can do it. Like, I look up to that guy. Look, he's getting away with this kind of stuff. And then it's going to be someone that chimes in, maybe me, maybe somebody else that's like, yeah, but he's rich. And the rules apply to rich people very differently than they apply to the rest of us. And how many times have we seen this thing roll out where rich people get away with stuff, but not us? We start doing that, what happens to us? And then I think it becomes the interjection, whether it be for me or anybody else, of really asking questions. And the next question would be, what do you got to lose? Someone catches you doing this, it's illegal. What do you have to lose? And kids oftentimes will be like, I got nothing to lose. Well, really? You've got this school that's getting you college ready to lose, because you do that, that's an immediate expulsion. And then you leave this school, how about the friends? You're playing a sport here, how about that? And I don't think that kids consider the ramifications of their actions. They see something, it's cool, And for guys, they want to emulate it because they look cool in front of their guy friends and they look like awesome in front of women, right? Or at least they think that they do. I'd arguably say that women may I don't know, like maybe I just have a different opinion of women. I can't necessarily see them waving guns around, but this generation's radically different. So maybe they're doing it for the same reason or worse, in order to get likes on Instagram, in order to get attention. And they're doing things without thinking about the long term. So your question, Charles, I wouldn't talk at kids. I would sit them down in a structured restorative justice circle, asking questions and interjecting here and there with just like a thought and a question.
Yeah, and I wasn't suggesting that you talk at him. And my camera's acting up, so I'll just go with the avatar. I wasn't suggesting that you talk at him. I hear what I'm saying. So listen, man. And Vita asked a good question. She says, as successful men of color, can you talk about the pressure of being responsible for your community, right? And there's a lot of pressure. It's a lot of pressure for me at my age. It's a lot. I was never taught how to be successful. I was never taught how to deal with running a company or to deal with having teammates or whatever. I have lost my cool this year. And what I would tell these young people is like, listen, man, there's a lot of pressure that comes with that space, and you need people around you that you trust. In Oakland, I had Dirk Tillison, I had David Castillo. Like I had these people because I had a temper. Like when I used to do this work, I had a real temper, and my authenticity worked in my favor a lot of times, but it also worked against me a lot too. And it could be, there are some skills that I had not yet developed. It is something to be said about when you are at that level, but you don't feel the respect, or you feel like you have to do extra to get that respect. There's something missing. And so I wouldn't talk at anybody, but I would say like, yo, man, I would try to get to the core of what that is. Ja Morant doesn't come from a broken home. Ja Morant's father is at every single game sitting courtside. He has a very supportive family. Part of the reason, this is why so many of those people are upset with him. That's why gangsters are saying, bro, they're doing the whole 8 Mile joke on him about like Clarence family has a real good marriage. Like, you know what I'm saying? Like he comes from a good place. And so I think, but there's a lot of pressure. And I think that what I would talk to these young people is like, listen, man, a lot of this, I was never taught how to deal with those emotions as a young person. I was taught that the way that you get respect is through violence in certain communities, that people don't respect you if you're not there. And in those streets, like, that stuff means a lot when people don't think that, but you have to think that yourself is worthy. So I just feel like having those conversations, I would be very honest with those young people. I would name some of the mistakes that I've made, not at 23, not just at 17, not just at 30, like in my grown ass age of now. You know what I'm saying? And I think that it starts with trying to have the right people and good people around you. If I'm worth $100 million and you cats are riding with me and you let me do dumb shit and I actually pay into you and feed into you, then I got to get new friends. You know what I mean? But I've had people like when I was at 8 Black Hands and Sharif was always playing this kind of big brother role to me because he is very Zen-like. I am not Zen-like, and I'm the youngest of that group. You know what I mean? So those are the ways that I would address it. But I don't want to beat the topic to death. I just know this is kids his age that are in that generation have spent significantly more time with educators and on school campuses than they probably have at home, than they probably have at church, or whatever the case is. School should not teach morality. I'm talking about adults that young people trust and love and believe in, and like how we should be having those conversations to help interrupt this. Who is calling his phone and saying, hey, man, I'm not about to judge you. You done made some mistakes, but let's go grab a bite real quick so I can talk to you and I can build into you. That was kind of what I was trying to get into. You know what I'm saying? So
I mean, these are the kinds of stories that if I were still teaching, these are the kinds of things that we would definitely talk about. I was high school, so somebody asked about like what if you were going to bring this up as a topic of discussion. Like, I think kids should be talking about it in school. I think advisory is a good place. Not every teacher is prepared or maybe trained to facilitate these kinds of conversations. Going back to what Omar was saying, like, obviously we're not trying to bring in your own personal agenda into the classroom, but creating a space, creating dialogue for young people to explore, examine, and kind of dissect all the different layers that are happening here, because this is extremely it's pretty complex. And there's a whole social media side to it also, right?
Yeah.
So what's different from when I was growing up to now? Everything gets filmed. Talking to young kids about that, like talking to young athletes about that, like any given time of the day, you can be filmed for something and just assume that that's going to become part of the internet forever, right? It doesn't go away. And so there's the social media part of it, which our young people are living with now, which is very different. And then there's also the pressure, which I think is like maybe the circular thing that's happening with Ja, where yeah, I don't know what his social media feeds look like, but he was trying to like live some kind of lifestyle that is not natural, but like it's not where he came from. But if you consume enough social media, a particular kind, it's gonna have some kind of impact on you, right? And pretty soon you're doing these things. The other piece that Vita was talking about, I think I like these questions. And yeah, I think for a 23-year-old, it's a lot of pressure, right? And he's not just an average 23-year-old. He's a 23-year-old athlete, celebrity with a lot of money on the line. I don't know if you can actually, I don't know if you can convince somebody about the value of, being a leader, being a role model for your community. Like that commitment has to come from the heart. But I'm sure Ja had a lot of people in his court that got, no pun intended, that got him to where he was, right? And at a certain point, you do have a responsibility to pay it forward. And the way that you do that is by, being a role model and, hopefully helping other people, become successful like he was. I just think at the end of the day, like if you were to break this down, you're talking in this like Socratic circle with students at Omar's school, and it's like you walk away with more questions, right? Like why, if you look at the money and then the potential risk to his career, and then him putting his personal safety at risk, it doesn't make sense to me. Something about the story is missing, but I do think it's intriguing, and I think young people should definitely be. These are like this is a teaching opportunity, right? It's a teaching moment. So I don't know if it's happening in schools. Maybe it will, but I think it should. If there are educators out there watching this, for the right age, older middle school students, high school kids, definitely bring this into the classroom and open up a conversation. See what the young people have to say about it.
And I know we're wrapping up. Go ahead, brother. Go ahead, and I'll take us into final thoughts after you
beautiful.
go, David.
Thanks, man.
I mean, after you go, Omar.
All good, brother. So I want to answer a couple of these questions because they were outstanding, and David did a really good job. So I just kind of want to reiterate a few things. One, if your school doesn't have an advisory, I would highly recommend one. The problem with most schools is that they don't know what to do with the advisory time. So it's like, well, it becomes like, homework time. It becomes like, what's it called? Like study hall, whatnot. And advisory is such a good and meaningful time to do several things. And if you have a 20-minute advisory, this is exactly the time to have these conversations. And you can build in a very simple 20-minute advisory, either at the beginning of school, we do one at the very beginning, or at the very end, and we have a small one at the end. And this is exactly the kind of thing that you can have a discussion with. So the kinds of activities to be done in advisories aren't just to build relationships with each other. It's also to talk about things that aren't necessarily part of the curriculum and the academic curriculum, but does have a meaningful impact on a child's life and that the way they're making decisions and their preparation for the real world. Look, I've got a very radical and different prescription on what I think education should be. And some people think it's just the academic component. And for me, no. We built this whole CRUSH scenario. CRUSH is the acronym that we go by, CRSHH. I know we don't have a U. It's somewhat misspelled, but that's what we pronounce it, because we're teaching students how to collaborate, how to be responsible, how to make intelligent decisions, how to critically think. I just think that if you put kids into the world without exposing them to these kinds of discussions, you're setting them up for failure. I think the most critical thing about this discussion is less to do with this gentleman who's a basketball player and having kids understand that when you're rich, which by the way is shocking because look, Beyonce's got an army of people behind her, PR people, writers, choreograph people. She's a very talented human being, but like, yo, where does she begin and her team end? Where's this guy's team is my first question. How is no one talking to this dude? How is no one sitting him down with him and being like, you're worth billions of bucks? And to answer Vita's question really quick, yes, it's a lot of responsibility on a 23-year-old, but it's a lot of responsibility to choose that lifestyle and decide to be a basketball player. So, well, that's unfair. No, it's not unfair. You're gifted with this incredible gift. This is what you've chosen to do in your pursuit of career and life, and that has an inordinate responsibility. You don't want to have the world looking at you. Go be Orenthal James, the bus driver, as Chris Rock put it. But when you're O.J. Simpson, the football player who everyone sought after and was a male role model and was in Hertz commercials, it bears an inordinate responsibility, and that's a responsibility that you have to choose when you are a celebrity and you're a rich person. And not being able to handle it, cool, get out of the game. I don't care who you are. Get out of the game then if you can't handle it, because that's what you signed up for, because the rest of us don't have that talent, don't have all that. And I got to tell you, for a guy who doesn't have that talent, who isn't in that spotlight, who doesn't have anywhere near the level of influence to answer another one of your questions, yes, I bear the responsibility of my community because I'm thinking consistently how my actions affect and impact others. And this goes down to responsibility and what we would teach in our classroom. This man is not thinking about anybody else except himself. And that level of selfishness is not only going to get himself in trouble, his community in trouble, his family in trouble, and the NBA in trouble. According to this gentleman in LA, it could actually get him in life trouble. And that's some serious stuff.
I don't know if that was your final thought.
It is. Absolutely. I'm done.
Okay. I was like, if that wasn't a final thought, that was a hell of a thought. I thought it was good. But if you want another
that is
crack
my final thought.
David,
nope, that's my final thought.
If you want another crack at after David, go ahead. David, it's on you, brother.
Yeah. So this conversation has me thinking about what happens in schools around, and I'm thinking specifically around what we've seen in charter schools, the charter schools that I've worked in, where we've created curriculum. It's they call it social emotional learning now. We used to call it character education. We had habits of mind and habits of heart, and we had we have lessons designed around a lot of this stuff, around decision making, around the choices that young people make. Because what we were doing is we were preparing young Black and young brown men and women to go out into not the NBA, but to go out into the world, to go out into college or the world of work, right? And you have to, there are certain things that you have to understand to be able to survive as a person of color, as a young person of color in the world, whether we like it or not. And so that was just part of our curriculum, right? We felt like if we could, we could help the students acquire the academic skills, but then there was this whole other part around instruction and curriculum at the school that was designed around, character education and development for young people. So that has me thinking about this. And then Vita's question here is an interesting one. Surely people in Ja's circle and people like us can look at it and say this man's made a couple of mistakes and we hope that he recovers. Absolute, people make mistakes, we all do, so there's a level of forgiveness there, but then the hard lesson is that like the media gives zero room on that, right? And so that's the hard reality for him, that they're not going to possibly give him a second chance. They're just going to like write him out on this. But that's also part of the situation and what you can teach young people. And like you can have like a one-on-one and say, "Yep, you made a mistake. We're going to move on. We're going to look."
Oh, see, it's not just me. Canva's. I mean, the
Man.
thing is acting up. It
All
wasn't
right.
just me.
I'm sorry. I forgot to turn my
Hey,
phone
we're
off.
back.
Yeah.
Come on.
But yeah, it's that those two levels of, sure, he can be forgiven in certain levels, but the media, the league, they might not forgive him. His sponsors are not going to forgive him.
Yeah. I think here's what I'll say, man. I'll just keep it here for the final. I think here's what I think. I think it's bigger than advisories thing. I think it's bigger than I think this is about relationships, and I think it's about helping teach young folks in the way that they should kind of go. And I think that this is about trust. I think that there's a lot of skills that a lot of people don't have, and that I didn't have, that I'm still growing, and I'm almost 40. I think that it's a lot of pressure put on your back when you have like a community looking up to you and looking at every single thing you do. Like I felt stressed out. I remember feeling stressed out even when A Black Hands was at his apex. Not even, I mean, that's completely tiny on the scale of what this guy is. But when people walk up to you and they know you before you know them, right? Like, and then I take into account that none of these degrees, nothing that I accomplished, none of it matters because they see a Black dude first, and a Black dude who does hold on to the place that he grows up in. You see, I like a diamond in my ear. I like having my nice little diamond necklace. Like that means something to me. But even with 4 degrees, even with running companies, even with success, even writing and doing all the nerd shit that I do, I still get on a train and a woman will still hold her purse closer to her. And it's a lot of things that you got to handle. I'm not throwing Ja Morant away. This isn't one of those things. He is going to get a significant punishment from the NBA. You had said something in there, Omar, that who's talking to him. He got people talking to him. I assure you, like people own homes because of him. People's kids are going to college because of him. The commissioner of one of the biggest leagues that the world has ever seen, that's at the most valuable that has ever been. When he comes and says, "I need you to come sit in my office," oh, somebody is talking to you. But I do think there's a disassociation there. And I think it has to come from people he respects. So Allen Iverson, if you're listening to this, Joe Dumars, who is the second in command around this, who's lived this life and been through it, people that have been here and that truly understand what it's like to have millions of dollars, to be from a particular place, look a certain type of way, that has been through it and been through those pains. He needs somebody that's navigated this before and that's going to talk to him with love that he respects. Derrick Rose, if you're there, and I'll just say this for the basketball people, and I'll close out because I know I've been long-winded, but it's something that means a lot to me on a personal level. Derrick Rose is one of the most loved athletes out of Chicago ever. But there was a guy named Benji from Chicago who also was going to be one of the biggest ball players ever, and he was murdered right before he could go to the league. And so when Derrick Rose was coming up and he's playing out south, he's playing out west, his brother and that group would protect him. They wouldn't let him shoot dice. They wouldn't let him be involved in none of the stuff. Derrick Rose has talked about being so frustrated with his brother, like physically fighting his brother because his brother would not let him. And his brother is like, "Listen, man, we all can ball, but we can't ball like you. We can't do what you can do." And they put a bubble around him. And friends of the popular guy, let me talk to you instead of Ja. If you got a friend who can make it out that situation and potentially put you all on and potentially change your life, you got to protect that entity. You got to protect that golden goose, man. You got to know how to say no. You got to say, "Hey, man, this ain't for you." And I'm so blessed that I had friends that never let me be something I wasn't. They wouldn't let me stay for the dice game that would get shot, that would get laid down. They wouldn't let me be a part of the fights. They wouldn't let me, when the drugs and stuff came out, "Hey, man, go home. Go dribble that ball. Go do that study nerd shit that you do." You need that stuff, man, because there's something up here for a lot of us where when you grow up in a certain environment or you respect a certain environment and it don't respect you back, it can really fuck with you. This has been another episode of the South Star Classroom. That's Omar. That's David. We did not have Jubilee or the damn dog this week, but we did have Omar's damn dog. And we would probably have both dogs next week. We will see you all same bad time Tuesdays.
Good ass dog, man.
For rocking with us on this move. We are now Tuesdays live, 6 p.m. Eastern, 3 Pacific. But we still run the show again Friday at the original time, and we're in the comments. So thank you for supporting us. We love it. We appreciate you, and we'll see you all next time. South Star
Thanks,
Classroom.
y'all.
Peace.